couple of weeks ago I made this video here, and in that video I'd gotten a comment from my friend Hanz Hugren. Give me a second and I'm going to read it to you if I can pull it up here. Let's see.
Already, and I'm going to try to condense it down.
He asks me a very good question. And I'll have a link to Hanz's channel in the description box below. He has a very good channel. He always leaves some wise comments. He has a very good way of putting things. He's a very sensible and reasonable man, I believe. And here's the comment. One thing that I'm missing out of this video in particular, the solutions. No detailed plans, just in general what people can do. How do we ensure the existence of private property? How do we make people understand these different ideologies or false dichotomies? Where do we put our focus if not in such ideologies? I'm really keen to hear your take on such. So I appreciate it, Hanz, asking the hard-hitting questions. Now, sometimes I have to say I feel like I don't really have any solutions. You know, I wish I had a magic wand and I could just, flick my wrist and everything will be situated, but it's not the case. Sometimes it's a hard thing to know what to do. I don't really have any solutions, but I do have some ideas and I have some thoughts. And I'm going to go over a little bit of each one. Some of these thoughts are just, honestly, as I see it, they're just common sense. Some of these things are the things that Varg speaks about, because I think that he is correct on a lot of these things that we will be talking about. So yeah, I'll spend a few minutes on each point, and hopefully I will be able to answer Hanz's questions. So, before you can think about solutions, a solution requires a problem. And before we can look for solutions or answers, we have to first identify the problem. And the problem is dependence upon a system. Upon this system. It is this system that the elites control. It's a tremendous problem. I mean, we are enslaved. Well, we're economically enslaved. That's when I say enslaved, that's what I mean. But we are so dependent upon this system. I mean, just think about it. This light here, the electricity that is running this light is produced by the Tennessee Valley Authority. This light I am dependent on. It's not something I'm making. This shirt, I didn't make this shirt. Real Mossy Oak did. I didn't make this shirt. Oh, and the list goes on. If you get what I'm saying here, we're so dependent on it. We're dependent on it in ways that we can't even fathom sometimes. It's just the way it is, The problem is our dependence. So I think the true solution is to be as self-reliant as we can possibly be. I have a job. I'm lucky because I have a job that I like. I work for good people. But I am dependent on the money that I get for this job. To keep the lights on, to keep the clothes on our backs, to keep the food in our bellies. So, we are all dependent, whether we like admitting it or not. I hate to say it, this is a harsh truth. But what I think the key is to minimize your dependence upon the system. I made this video here a while back. I built a raised bed garden in the backyard. It's not a big garden, and certainly it's not enough to sustain us, but it's a start, and I will build more next year. What I did is I just used an old shelf. I took the shelves off of it, hauled it off from the backyard, put soil in it, put eggshells, leaves, grass clippings, and it's doing well. You know, we're getting a lot of squash, cucumbers, spaghetti squash, okra. Our tomatoes have done fantastic this year. And I have to thank Miranda's cousin Ethan for sending them down here to us. This is not enough, you know, to sustain us. I don't have any livestock yet. But it's a start, you know. Something small. But I look at it as this: you've got to walk. You've got to crawl before you can walk. You've got to walk before you can run. And I've got a couple of channels that I'll recommend. There's one, Myobi, her channel, the Hilltop Homestead. I'll put a link to it as well in the box below. And another one is called the Woodlander. He's an English gentleman who's went off the grid, makes videos talking about it. I've not watched as many of his videos as I'd like to, but what he talks about, I agree with completely, what I've seen so far. So I think it is about impossible to be broken away, for us to completely break away from the system just yet. But you can do small things. And if enough of us was able to do these small things, it would make a difference. It would hurt the powers that be. It would hurt them and the corporations that they control. It would hurt their bottom line. It would hurt their bottom line. It's just a matter of getting enough of us to do these sort of things. You know, and I've heard Vard say this before. I couldn't agree more. It's pure wisdom, I think. I don't want more money. I want to need less money. Something good to think about there. Come on, buddy. So, to try to answer one of Hanz's questions, where he asks, how do we make people realize that this communism and capitalism is a false dichotomy? Well, the video that I had made, it was basically trying to illustrate this. I had the interview with Anthony Sutton from back in 1987 on it. This video got about 360 views. That's about a third of how many people are subscribed to my channel. Just a third. You know, I understand. Heck, a lot of the people subscribed to me probably don't even watch it. I'm not reaching anybody that isn't somewhat aware of what's going on already. I mean, YouTube ensures that. They don't like me very much. And to be honest, as I see it, a lot of people, just people out, most people don't care about this sort of thing. All they care about is their sports ball, or what's on Netflix, or how much money's in their bank account, and it's just hopeless in a way. I know a lot of people talk about trying to red pill the normies or whatever. I'm not here to do that. I don't really care. Because as I see it, a lot of people, if they don't have the mental acuity to even to look into these things for themselves, what good are they? They're fucking worthless. They really are. So, I don't know. I don't really have an answer, I guess you could say, to this question. All we can do is try to talk about these things, try to enlighten people. Most of them don't give a fuck, and it's pointless. But still, we do what we can. So, I think what it is not necessarily make these people to see that it's a false dichotomy, just to make them see that they're enslaved, economically speaking. After all, basically every Western nation, most of the nations on this earth, has a central bank that pays a tribute. They have a central bank that is privately owned. They pay tribute to one of these elite dynastic banking families, usually of a certain ethnic persuasion. We pay interest. I mean, $1 is an interest-bearing note, and I'm sure it's the same in all of our nations, save for a few. We pay interest. The national debt is through the roof right now. It's went through the fucking roof the last 20, 25 years. I don't understand it, The taxes we pay, I would imagine a portion of it goes to this national debt. And we just keep racking up more. Our governments do this. I think the answer is to try to make people see that they are economically enslaved. But as I said, most people don't fucking care. They are happy to be enslaved. They're happy to pay their taxes, to consume. They're materialistic. But, as I said, we do what we can. Now, some of you may ask about the political solution. The political solution currently is a dead end, in my opinion. It's completely pointless. Varg had made several videos talking about this, and I mean, it's pretty much common knowledge. There is no political solution, at least how things are currently. And I am skeptical of any political party, even one that might rise up here in the United States. I am skeptical of them. Can't help it. A lot of times, these groups, up top, they're basically just, I guess you could say, a honeypot. It's pointless. They are made to entrap common people like us if we find an interest in them and want to join. Basically, they're just going to fuck all of us over. They're plants up top. And even if it is an organic movement, and somehow, some way, manages to gain popularity, you can be damn certain that it's going to be infiltrated by people. So I'm weary of any political solution, any political answer. At least how things are right now. We'd have to have some sort of collapse or partial collapse before enough of the masses will realize how completely fucked everything is right now. So there's no sense and wasting time, I think, at this moment on some political solution. It's just not going to happen. Maybe, if things get bad enough, perhaps there will be a solution of some sort. But that's hypothetically speaking if there is some sort of collapse, which will bring me to my next point. So, many of us, including myself, speak of a coming collapse. You know, I've heard this said a lot the last couple of years. And while I hope for some sort of collapse, partial, whatever, I'm starting to feel that the people in charge, powers that be, they don't want a collapse. I mean, after all, it would give us what we need. And they're not going to just give us what we need, as I see it. You know, the collapse, take for instance the Roman Empire. The collapse wasn't overnight. It wasn't over a few years. It happened over generations. You know, and I think what we're seeing right now is a controlled demolition of a lot of the things that our country was built upon, and European nations as well. We're seeing a controlled demolition. You see, this whole coronavirus pandemic it aided in like the greatest wealth transfer in modern history. You know, it's a controlled demolition, and I don't see a collapse happening very suddenly. I hate to say it, you know. I hope I'm wrong. But I just don't see it because it's what we want, and they're not going to give us what we want. All I think we can do is just prepare ourselves in the meantime in case we get what we're asking for. One of the biggest things that we can do to hinder the system is to avoid debt at all costs. After all, our economy, it's completely based upon debt. And if you're able to avoid this, you will, if enough of us do it, you will make a dent in things. Unfortunately, nowadays in life, we often hear I've heard so many people say that the only way you can have anything nowadays is to go in debt. And to a degree, they're not wrong about this. But as I see it, the only thing really worth going in debt for is land. After all, they're not making any more land. And, you know, seeing through the actions of these huge multinational corporations like BlackRock, you know, it makes buying land even more imperative than ever, I think. But going in debt for frivolous things, going in debt for a car, which I guess, you know, I could definitely see the argument for that, but really, like, how many people do you know in your life that go into debt for something as soon as something new comes out? Like, I know of people, I've met people before, that have to have the latest yearly version of whatever vehicle it is. You know, they just sign a lease. They do it every year. I don't understand this. First off, I've never owned a brand new vehicle, and I never will. There's no sense in it. I'd rather have something old that runs than something new that I have to swap in every fucking year just to keep up with the Joneses. I don't give a shit about the Joneses. I'm not trying to keep up with them. Not in the least. The only people I try to keep up with is myself and my family. I'm not interested in these wealth displays, these frivolous wealth displays. It's just gross materialism. So, another point is every time you purchase something, you pay taxes on it, unless it's, you know, a private transaction of sorts. Every time you purchase something, you pay a tax. You pay sales tax or whatever. This tax goes to fund the system. I hate taxes. When I was younger, I didn't really mind taxes because, had this brainwashed view that, paying taxes goes to keeping up our country's infrastructure, goes to this or that, important things. But how often do we see nowadays, here in this clown world, that our tax dollars are going to fund things like critical race theory in schools, funding the indoctrination of our youth? It goes to funding these wars in the Middle East, all these things. I hate paying taxes. I hate it. Despise it. But there's a thing that we can do. You have to ask yourself, each time you purchase something, do you really need this? Do you? Or are you just being a consumer for consuming's sake? Each time you spend money, you're funding the system. And we can't avoid buying things. As like I said earlier, we are all part of the system, unfortunately. But you need to ask yourself, do you really need this?
What you doing?
Oh, about those taxes. Tax evasion is something that actually interests me. But I'm not encouraging anyone to do that because, if you look at modern history, tax evasion is this sort of umbrella charge that they try to rope criminals in if they can't prove what actual criminal activities that they are into, if they're unable to prove it. But I hate paying taxes, as I said a second ago. I just hate it. And through property taxes, I'm tempted to argue, even if you have your land paid off, do you really own it? Because if you don't pay your property taxes, well, the state will take your land. I wouldn't mind paying taxes if it actually went to bettering society, if it actually went to keeping our roads in shape, this or that. But in reality, what? It does everything that I mentioned just a second ago. Funds all these ridiculous anti-white programs. Funds, it's dizzying and it's nauseating what our taxes really fund. It funds so that Lord Jacob de Rothschild can live and his family can live their ridiculous lifestyle. It helped funds that faggot, David de Rothschild, so he can sail around the world on boats made of plastic garbage. I detest this. I hate it. And I really don't have any answers about what to do about taxes, except suck it up and pay them, I guess. Oh, but believe me, if there was a way to screw the system on this, I'd do it. But then I'd probably get caught, end up in prison. And I don't really like the idea of that. So, this is just, I wouldn't say this is a solution, but you know what I mean. Another point that I would like to make is to take care of what you got, take care of yourself, take care of what you possess, If there's anything small that you can do yourself, without having to buy it or without having to buy too many things to do it, go for it. Our vehicles, I change the oil on them. I'm not a mechanic by any means. My mind just doesn't work that way. My younger brother and my father, they're pretty damn good mechanics. They're good at taking things apart, putting things together. Growing up, if I had any problems with my car, 9 out of 10 times, Dad could fix it. But, you should learn how to do small things and how to take care of your possessions, because it's better to keep using what you got to ensure it has a long lifespan instead of having to buy something new as soon as something breaks. And one of the last points that I have is to be creative. You know, these are just a few ideas that I have. Some of these ideas I got from Varg, and I keep mentioning Varg. I know some of you have had arguments and falling outs with the man, and I can understand this. He can be kind of an abrasive personality, and he can be divisive. But I have to give the guy credit though, because a lot of these ideas that he presented through his videos are ideas that I had never thought of before until I discovered his channel several years ago. So, be creative. I'm certain that there are points, that there are solutions that I'm missing out on. So, use your imagination, And the last thing is Hanz, in his comment, had asked, what can we do to fight the abolition of private property? A while back, a few weeks, maybe a month or so ago, when this thing that BlackRock, where they were buying up all the homes, and they were paying the sellers, the families who were selling their homes, 20 to 50% above the market rate. There was a list I seen going around on 4chan of all the smaller subsidiaries of BlackRock, and I wish to God I had saved that list. On my Telegram channel, in my group, I asked if anybody had it saved. Nobody did. But it was a long list of these smaller real estate companies that worked for BlackRock. So, how to stop this is just don't sell your land. Don't sell it. And if you are going to sell, if you are looking to sell your home, make sure, do your homework about who you are selling the home to. If you're selling it to one of these subsidiaries who's going to turn it into a rental unit, I imagine the temptation, if they're offering you this much more money above the market price, is very tempting, but you need to quit being so fucking greedy. Greed is a huge part of what fuels this whole fucking mess we're in. Greed. I don't understand what it is with all this greed, it's unattractive. It really is. Do your homework and make sure you're not selling it to one of these companies, to one of these subsidiaries. I wish I had the list, and I apologize because I didn't save it, and that was my mistake. But do your homework before you sell. Do your homework. Look into it for yourself. So, that's one thing we could do to prevent the abolition of private property, I think. You got land, hold on to it. And after all, they're not making any more land, so land is going to be a very hot commodity here in the future, I believe. It already is, but I think it's going to get much hotter, to tell you the truth. So hopefully, Hanz, I appreciate you asking the tough questions. Hopefully this is some solutions. As I said, I don't know if they're really solutions, but they're just ideas that I think that can help us. Can help all of us. As I said, go check out Hanz's channel and the other channels I put in the box below. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.